achieved.
It is incredibly late here in my makeshift Kamikaze studios as I prepare to give you my next set of predictions, and that is because this week, this December fight week, is absolutely ridiculous, and it's going to be a lot of fun. 3 cards in 3 nights capped off by the event I'm about to predict for you, and I'm really looking forward to giving you my predictions, but nothing's happened yet as I'm taping this. It's still a week, or not quite a week away from the first card. It's Sunday night. Early, almost pretty much Monday morning, actually, when I'm breaking these down for you. And, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 194 event, which will take place on December 12th and cap off 3 nights of unbelievable MMA action and be headlined by the long-awaited Jose Aldo Conor McGregor featherweight belt title fight. The belt will be on the line. We also get a fantastic middleweight title fight, which will be incredibly fun as well. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm coming off a pretty poor showing in my last card, but heck, by the time this event happens, I could have had 2 awesome showings. I could have had 2 mediocre. Who knows? It's going to be a great, crazy week. I'm doing my best to crank everything out. Make sure you watch my UFC Fight Night 80 and Ultimate Fighter 22 finale breakdowns. Buy the bet packs if you're interested in betting. You can buy them each for $10, or you can buy the final 4 bet packs of the year that also includes the UFC on Fox 17 event, which will take place a week from this card. And you can buy it for $30 and save yourself $10. Please vote in the polls. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. There's all kinds of fun stuff. Check out the prediction panels, posts, and predictions on these fights. It's going to be a heck of a night. We've got 5 amazing fights for this main card for UFC 194, and let's get to our first prediction. The main card opens up in the UFC's featherweight division as the 5th-ranked Max Blessed Holloway, 14 wins and 3 losses, takes on former UFC lightweight and the number 8th ranked featherweight on the planet, Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens, with a current record of 24 wins and 11 losses. Now, the winner of this matchup is very much in the title mix, a little more for Max Holloway, potentially next in line after the Mendes-Edgar fight, which I already gave you my prediction for. I feel the winner of that will probably get themselves a front row ticket to fight for the title next. For Jeremy Stevens, he's coming off a massive win that revitalized his featherweight run. He was on the verge of potentially losing 3 consecutive fights before knocking out Dennis Bermudez. For Max Holloway, he is in the midst of an impressive run. 7 consecutive victories, including wins over the last 2 men to actually beat Jeremy Stevens, Charles Oliveira, which was kind of a TKO due to injury. And he also completely outclassed and eventually finished Cub Swanson. Both men also have common opponents in Cole Miller, who they both defeated. Stevens knocked out Dennis Bermudez, the man we just talked about, and Holloway lost a controversial decision to Dennis. So a lot of commonality in who they have faced. Physically, Max is 3 inches taller. Jeremy Stevens, though, will have a 2-inch reach advantage, and Holloway is the younger man by 5 years. Now, both guys are striking-based fighters, but they are drastically different striking-based fighters. Stevens, of his 24 career wins, 16 have come by knockout. For Max Holloway, of his 14 career wins, 6 have come by knockout. Stevens has pure face-melting one-punch power, and he has a lot of other weapons besides just his big right hand that he can deliver it with. We saw him knock out Honey Jason with a head kick, and he took out Dennis Bermudez with a jumping knee. For Max Holloway, he is more death by accumulation, by pace, and by overwhelming his opposition. He averages 5.67 strikes per minute, almost 3 strikes more per minute than Jeremy Stevens does. Max, as a striker, has excellent timing. He has very good distance management, very good footwork and head movement. He throws a nice variety of strikes, highlighted by a very stiff jab. Look for him to throw a lot of turning side kicks. He will rip the body with jabs and just with the hooks, and will just wear his opponent out. For Jeremy Stevens, he is absolutely at his best when he can vary his attack and be multi-dimensional with his striking, but more often than not, he will look for that big knockout, and he becomes predictable as a result. He is 5-7 when fights go the distance, and that plays a big role as his predictability. He has a bomb of a right hand. As I said, he already has a lot of power and a variety of different weapons. He throws a nice straight right counter if his opponent looks for leg kicks, and he will go to the body and throw a low right leg kick as well, which can be very effective. And again, he needs to mix up his strikes to be at his best. When he fought Cub Swanson, one of his most recent defeats, he found a lot of success in that fight when he was pressuring Cub and had him backing up, had him apprehensive and guessing. At the same time, though, he was struggling in that fight in other rounds when he just simply couldn't pull the trigger. Cub's speed, feints, and fakes were really throwing Jeremy Stephens off, had him guessing. He would start combinations and then pause and stop. He had a lot of issues finding any flow and rhythm to his attack. And he overall has had a lot of trouble with more technical strikers like Donald Cerrone, like Charles Oliveira, and like Cub Swanson. For Jeremy Stephens, he may look in this fight to incorporate his wrestling more often. Max does have a 78% takedown defense, so that could be easier said than done, and he's developed a pretty crafty and opportunistic submission game that he could try to capitalize on if they do go to the ground. For Holloway, the timing and distance is going to give Jeremy Stephens all kinds of trouble, and it's really going to short-circuit his power. As Stephens struggles to match Holloway's output and variety, I anticipate he's going to start headhunting and looking for that big shot that's going to change the complexion of the fight, and when he does that, if he doesn't land it, it's going to be harder for him to keep up. Stephens can turn this fight with one big punch, but if not, he's just not going to have the arsenal to match what Max Holloway, the output he puts forward. And my prediction is Max Holloway to defeat Jeremy Stephens. He could stop him eventually, but I'm going to take Max Holloway by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card, and I am well aware most of you are tuning in simply to hear my main event prediction, but bear with me because these are some excellent fights. Up next, we're in the UFC's welterweight division is the 6th-ranked Demian Maia, former middleweight title challenger, 21 wins and 6 losses, takes on the highly regarded number 12th-ranked Gunnar Gunny Nelson of Iceland with a record of 12 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Now, this fight was briefly scheduled to take place back in October. Maia had to pull out due to a staph infection, so they've been linked to each other before. Now, what we have here is a battle of elite-level grapplers. Maia, a 4th-degree BJJ black belt, 10 wins by submission. Gunnar Nelson, also a very accomplished BJJ black belt, and he also has 10 wins by submission. Neither man has been submitted in their careers. For Maia, though, he only has 2 submission wins in his last 16 fights, which is, we've talked about his but willingness to strike more and use less of his grappling. For Gunnar Nelson, 8 of his last 9 wins have come by tap-outs. He focuses much more on his grappling, and that's carried him to the point he's at right now. Physically, Maia is 2 inches taller, same reach. Nelson, though, 11 years younger, and that's a big number. Now, what we have here, when we have 2 top-level grapplers taking on each other, we could wind up with a primarily striking-based fight, which I think that shifts the advantage to Gunnar Nelson, and here's, I'll take a look at it. Why? He throws a traditional karate stance at his opponents. When he's striking, he showed he has power. He threw a nice short left-right combination to drop Brandon Thatch, a straight left hand that hurt Omar Yakhmadov before eventually submitting him. He covers distance exceptionally well, and he's much quicker than a lot of fighters can anticipate and expect him to be. He's very relaxed when he's striking, doesn't expend a lot of energy, maybe too relaxed at times, and he was tested in that Rick Story fight, the loss he had, but still, I still like his striking in this matchup. For Demian Maia, he likes to paw with his right hand, and that can be an effective technique, but you need to back it up with something that your opponent's going to respect. Against Ryan LaFleur, he was getting tagged several times, and while Maia showed improved footwork and was avoiding strikes, throughout the matchup, it's not his forte. His output does tend to drop a lot after he gets tired, which tends to happen around the end of the first, early in the second, and he will get a little bit more wild and desperate when he's trying to set up his strikes. Now, the grappling aspect of it. Look for Maia to shoot on a single leg. He does a very nice job of timing, especially when he's fresh, timing his opponent's striking attack and then changing levels and ducking under for a takedown. He'll look to establish control of his opponent's body, the body lock, and drag him down. Big question is, with Nelson's karate stance and the way he switches stances and moves, is that going to impact Maia's ability to target that leg and really get in deep on his shot? One thing we've seen with Maia is he has less success with his takedowns as the fight progresses. He needs more shots and continually push the pace to eventually put his opponent on the mat if he's able to do it at all. Against Ryan LaFleur, at one point he shot. Ryan LaFleur easily pushed him over, counter got on top. Maia countered again and swept to top position, but still, that's not something you want to be doing. Look for Maia to also, he will pull guard if the possibility presents itself. And if he does get on top, he is an absolute he's a BJJ ace, smothers his opponent on the mat, advances position, chips away with strikes, and eventually looks for that submission. For Gunnar Nelson, when he's looking for takedowns, he does a lot of work from the clinch with a nice inside trip. He had success against Rick Story. He will also shoot from the outside. He has a nice variety of takedown techniques. He smothers his opponents. He really does a nice job of stretching them out and really taking away their strength base. He works very nicely towards submissions. He really likes that back mount position. He has 4 rear naked chokes plus 1 neck crank from that position. it would be a huge feather in the cap of Demian Maia should he be able to submit Gunnar Nelson. And the same scenario, the other way around, if even more so if Gunnar Nelson could submit Demian Maia. Either way. But I think Gunnar Nelson, it's just as important for him to fend off the takedowns as it is to avoid getting submitted. That could be the key to his victory. Nelson, when he lost that first match to Rick Story, he came back very strong. He smashed Brandon Thatch. Brandon Thatch landed a couple big shots on the feet and eventually submitted him. That was very impressive. For Maia, he has lost fights to grapplers before. He lost to Jake Shields because he couldn't consistently get him on the mat and spent too much time on his back. When he did get to the ground, can Gunnar either replicate that success or simply defend the takedowns? And if he can survive that first round with Maia, the Brazilian is going to slow down and potentially have to rely solely on his striking. Either the grappling becomes a stalemate in this matchup, is what I'm seeing, or Gunnar does enough to survive the opening round and he gets the better of the striking exchanges. And my prediction is Gunnar Nelson to pull off an upset and defeat Demian Maia by decision. Fight number 3 on the main card takes place in the UFC's middleweight division as the former Strikeforce middleweight champion, number 2 ranked Ronaldo Jacare Souza, 22 wins, 3 losses, and 1 no contest, takes on a fellow former Strikeforce fighter, the number 3 ranked Yoel Soldier of God Romero, with a record of 10 wins and 1 loss. Now, just like the Mendes-Edgar fight that will happen a little earlier in the week, the winner of this matchup will be staking a claim to the next shot at their champion, who will decided in the fight that follows this one directly. We have a matchup of elite-level grapplers, Jacare, BJJ, and Judo black belts. For Romero, an Olympic silver medalist in freestyle wrestling, and just an all-around top elite-level wrestler. Physically, Souza 1 inch taller. Romero will have a 1 inch reach advantage, and Romero is 2 years older than Jacare. Looking at their win totals, Souza 16 wins by submission, which is damn impressive. He's 4-1 when going the distance, and 2-2 in fights ended by knockout. For Romero, 9-1 in fights ended by knockout, with just 1 decision win. So you know what his bread and butter is. Now we look at here is, do we get a grappling attempts on either side, or are these guys going to look and say, I'm going to try and win this with my striking? And I think again that advantage shifts to Yoel Romero, just like I thought it shifts to Gunnar Nelson in the last matchup. When you look at Romero, when he fought Lyoto Machida, which was an incredibly impressive performance, he cut off the cage exceptionally well against a very shifty opponent. He kept constant pressure. He threw a lot of kicks early in that matchup. We'll see if he does that against Jacare. He's going to look to try and take him down, and we'll talk about Jacare's takedown techniques in a moment. When Romero strikes, he moves forward into his strikes. He covers distance exceptionally well. He changes the speeds and rhythm exceptionally well, and that's something he does that really throws his opponents off, and he does a nice job of sliding out of range to avoid taking damage when they do return fire. He has a nice counter left hand, a quick 1-2. He dropped Tim Kennedy with a hard right hand at the end of that fight against Derek Brunson. It was a couple of left hands that put him down. He has a nice powerful push kick. Body kicks as well, and he'll throw that jumping knee. And he's so athletic, he can do it just about out of nowhere. Look for him to grab his opponent's head, pull it down, and then try and jump up into it to really put some emphasis into it. Another thing Romero does very well, he's able to recognize and see his opponent's strikes coming and move away to lessen the impact. Kennedy was having a ton of trouble landing strikes with regularity, and he was coming up short with a lot of what he was throwing. Looking at Jacare Souza, Jacare likes to punch and then come forward looking to initiate grappling opportunities. He looks for that double leg. He almost falls into his takedowns behind throwing a strike, and if he can't get the initial takedown, he will clinch, push his opponent into the cage, and continue working for the attempt. He's incredibly aggressive when he is striking, though. He's a little bit wild at times, even though he has cleaned up a lot of his technique from his earlier fights. Look for him to come forward throwing big hooks. Francis Carmel, in the second round of that matchup, when he fought Jacare, kept him standing and had success doing so, and made that fight much closer than it appeared to be after the first round. And Jacare was having trouble coming up short with strikes and narrowing that distance. He does have a pretty good hook to the body. He'll throw a front kick down the middle. He'll throw some wheel kicks. Some of that's window dressing, as a lot of his big flashy kicks don't seem to connect. He did stop Yushin Okami on the feet with a big shot and follow-up strikes on the mat. Now, looking at the grapplings, that's something we have to address in this matchup. Most of Jacare's takedowns, as I said, come along the cage, where he likes to back guys in and really suck their hips out. Can he close the distance and get Romero put in that position to take him down? In a couple of his fights against Karma and against Gegard Mousasi, he was having trouble. He was diving for a lot of takedowns and coming up a little bit short until he established that range. Once he gets his opponent on the mat, though, he has exceptionally tight body control, does a nice job of really pressuring them, rides his opponent out, advances positions, works towards subs, really likes that arm triangle position where he can dominate his opponent on top and eventually break them down to the point where they can't resist it anymore. For Romero, He is so physically gifted and so quick. Anytime Tim Kennedy was able to actually get a hand on him and try and drag him to the mat, he was able to really shrug him off and power out of that position. But when you go back to the Derek Brunson fight, which was a little bit earlier, Brunson did have success taking him down, mounted him one time, and, had a lot, Romero did get up a couple of times after getting taken down, but Brunson did have some success and was actually winning that fight before getting stopped. But keep in mind, Romero was a little bit wilder with his strikes in that matchup, and that was giving Brunson opportunities to get in and take him down because he was off balance. What I like what Romero does, he scoops his hips back very well on takedown attempts, pushes opponents kind of his head down to take away that ability to push forward, and he's able to move away before his opponent can recover the position. Offensively, if Romero does look for takedowns, quick trip takedowns, he has, ability to shoot and really bowl through guys with that monster power. Against Lyoto Machida, he started landing monster elbows once he got on top and put him away. And we've seen him a couple times in fights land takedowns late in rounds to try and secure that round. If he, and he's very smart that way, and he could very much look to do that. When you look at Jacare, his recent opponents have been much slower of foot, not overly swift. If he can't get a takedown in this matchup, he's not the same fighter. We saw that in the Francis Carmon matchup, and Carmon wasn't being an aggressive striker like Yoel Romero will be. Romero's cardio is a bit of a question mark, and what happens if a wrestler gets put on his back and taken out of his comfort zone? I think he's going to use his wrestling primarily defensively and remain vertical. Jacare is going to struggle to close that gap, and Romero's power and movement and speed is going to back him up. And my prediction is Yoel Romero to defeat Jacare Souza by knockout. And I am putting together some longer breakdowns on this card, but there are some fights that certainly are worth breaking down. This is a fantastic card, and I can't reiterate that enough. We move now to the co-main event of the evening. It's still in the UFC's middleweight division, but the title is on the line here as the champion, the All-American Chris Weidman, with an undefeated record of 13-0, takes on the number one ranked fighter in the division, the former Strikeforce champion, the last man to hold the Strikeforce belt, Luke Rockhold, who currently carries a record of 14 wins and 2 losses. Now, this is a fight that really should be headlining its own card. It is that good, and this could be actually the first of a couple meetings, as we could see, a second fight at somewhere down the road, or an immediate rematch, depending on the outcome. But still, it's a fantastic matchup. Now, what we have here is the last Strikeforce champion versus the current UFC champion. Technically, Weidman is actually the Strikeforce linear champion, if I checked my facts correctly, as he beat Vitor Belfort at middleweight after Belfort beat Luke Rockhold in Rockhold's first fight after leaving Strikeforce. So just a little fact that means pretty much nothing. Now, both guys have beaten up impressive opposition of late. Rockhold stopped Costa Philippou, Tim Boetsch, Michael Bisping, Lyoto Machida. Weidman stopped Mark Munoz, Anderson Silva twice, and Vitor Belfort, and also picked up a decision win over that same Lyoto Machida. But keep in mind, people are pointing out the decision fight with Machida and saying, see how easy Rockhold beat him, and Weidman had a much more, bigger challenge against the Dragon, and that's a guarantee Rockhold's a better fighter. Not the case. Moving on. Physically, Rockhold 1 inch taller, Weidman will have a 1 inch reach advantage, and Rockhold will have a 3 inch leg reach advantage. I've seen the UFC posting those stats, so that's worth noting as well. They're the same age, and they're both in their primes. So that's a great way, and that's a big thing with Weidman. A lot of people have been pointing out the fact he's fought a lot of older guys. He's fighting somebody who's right there in his prime alongside him, so very interesting. One thing to keep in mind when talking about their physical makeups, Weidman, no IV use. He's trying to get his weight down lower to make that cut better. It could result in better cardio. We'll have to see if that impacts him. But, making a change to your regular routine before a big fight, not always a benefit. Weidman, NCAA Division I wrestler, BJJ black belt, 6 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, and 4 on the scorecards. For Rockhold, BJJ black belt, 9 wins by submission. He's 2-0 when going the distance, and he has 3 wins and 2 losses, though, in fights ending by knockout. The Vitor Belfort knockout, and he lost his second career fight as a professional by knockout as well. Clearly not the same fighter then as he is now. For Rockhold, he's exceptionally confident. He's coming to this matchup with a lot of momentum, and that's a big thing to have Mo on your side. Constant pressure, not a frantic fighter by any stretch of the imagination, stalks forward, but it's just that calm approach, almost like that serial killer guy in horror movies. He's walking, you're running, he keeps gaining on you. His grappling has been the center of his success. And you look at the Bisping fight and the Machida fight, whenever they hit the mat, he was physically able to control both men, which was very impressive. He wraps guys up, really, and we saw that against Tim Boetsch when we submitted them, which he's got long legs. It really makes it difficult for you to deal with that. He does a nice job of really riding and controlling the position. He has massive ground and pound. When he fought Machida, very quick back take in that matchup once the fight went to the ground, which eventually led to the finish. And his body triangle, because of those long legs, is a tough position for guys to get out of. For Weidman, he's an exceptionally talented grappler, both as a wrestler and BJJ practitioner. When he fought Anderson Silva, he shot for a takedown right away, landed some big ground and pound, some big punches and elbows, which are all effective techniques from top position. And he doesn't need to posture up to get a lot of impact with those strikes, and that's something to look for here. If Rockhold tries to control that posture, Weidman can still do damage if they do wind up in that position. One thing with Weidman, though, is his takedown success seems to drop off as the fights go. Against Machida in that longer matchup, he was not getting as deep on his shot, not as much behind him, and he was having a lot of struggles to get his opponent to the mat. I do like the way he fakes his takedown. Sometimes he fakes the takedown, so it's a nice left hook, which fighters are anticipating defending the takedown, and they don't have their striking defense where it should be. Uses that wrestling setup of striking, nice combinations when he does strike, and talking about his striking now, he'll throw a nice right-left combination, and he's had success with pressure as well. Front kick to the body, lots of low kicks, but I have noticed his kicking game is not nearly as smooth as the challengers in this matchup, and we all know he's capable of checking low kicks. We saw what he did to Anderson Silva. Against Leonardo Machida in that 5-round matchup, though, the output of Rockhold, especially in the second, third, and fourth rounds, and in the end a little more so, it wasn't there, or wasn't at that level where he was able to really overwhelm Machida. He had a lot of start and restarts, not as an effective technique. Against Vitor Belfort, he got a little bit wild looking to engage him early on, was chasing him across the cage. I didn't like that. He didn't stay reserved like Luke Rockhold has done in a lot of his fights. Against Belfort, he was getting absolutely hammered on the cage, and Belfort was able to unload. I don't like the way Weidman shells up, and he got busted open by Belfort. Silva had some success hurting him and cutting him open as well in the second matchup, and he seemed a little bit bewildered after the opening round of the Silva fight, which is something, it's a little bit concerning in that matchup if he gets put into deep waters. Machida had a ton of success with the back leg power kick to the body, especially as that fight progressed. He was doing a lot of damage with it, and it was opening up spots for his punches because Weidman's hands started to drop, both because he was tired and because he was trying to cover up his body to protect that from landing. That's something, and because of that, Weidman was getting hit with some big left hands. He was hurt in the fourth round. He was struggling with the aggression and pressure of Machida, and he seemed to, similar in the opening round of the first Anderson Silva fight, he was kind of overwhelmed at times in the striking exchanges. For Rockhold, he has a very good kicking game. That back leg a round kick to the body is one of his best techniques. The power kick to the body, very hard. He throws some hard low kicks. He hurt Michael Bisping with a head kick and eventually finished him. His hands are good as well. A lead left hook, he'll double it up at times, and he landed a nice counter strike against Machida to hurt him. Weidman stands in the orthodox position when he's striking, which opens him up to land that, or opens up the opportunity to land that power, for Rockhold to land that power kick to the body. And that's something, because Rockhold stands southpaw, and that's very important in this matchup. And I think we're going to see that happen here. We saw Machida have a lot of success with it. Rockhold has gone 5 rounds twice in his career, Weidman just once. And I prefer Rockhold's style of fighting over Weidman's in longer fights. It seems like Rockhold does a better job of conserving. He remains calm even under pressure. Rockhold will use his leg kicks to diffuse the pressure of Weidman. He hurt him early. Might even, we might see Weidman take him down early on, but I think Rockhold is going to have to find a lot of success with his grappling, defending those opportunities, and he's going to make the ground a non-factor for Weidman, make it not his friend to take the fight to the mat. I don't like the way Weidman responds to getting tagged. He seems to, have a little bit of trouble, with big shots. He's able to work his way through it, but I think Rockhold's the type of guy who can capitalize on that and will go for it. And the combination of damage and fatigue that's going to set in is going to open up more opportunities, and my prediction is Luke Rockhold to defeat Chris Weidman it could come by submission, but I'm going to take Luke Rockhold to defeat him by TKO. And now we head to the main event of the evening, the matchup we have all been waiting for, as the long-reigning UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo, 25 wins and 1 loss, takes on the interim and champion and number 1 ranked fighter, Conor, the notorious Conor McGregor of Ireland, with a record of 18 wins and 2 losses. Now, Aldo surprisingly is the underdog on the betting cards coming into this matchup. It's, is it the hype? Is it what McGregor's done lately? It was what Aldo hasn't done lately. Either way, Aldo is the underdog. That could shift, and I wouldn't be surprised if it shifts by fight time, because a lot of people are going to jump on that and put some big money down. Aldo has been out of action for the last 13 months, and since that time, Conor has fought twice, and that's, he's been much more active. That's an advantage for McGregor right off the bat. We've seen a lot of trash talk, a lot of bravado for this fight. It's been going for a while since it was actually scheduled to originally take place in July. A lot of prep time for both guys, but a lot of emotions coming to this matchup as well. Physically, McGregor's the bigger man, 2 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage. He's also 2 years younger. Looking at the reigning champion, BJJ black belt, 14 wins by knockout, 9-0 in fights that go the distance, 2-1 in fights ended by submission. For Conor McGregor, BJJ brown belt, 16 wins by knockout, 1-2 in fights that end by submission, 1-0 when going the distance. Both men hit incredibly hard. Aldo has been criticized over fighting safe. He only has one legit stoppage if we're not going to count the Korean Zombie TKO victory due to injury. Aldo has only one legitimate stoppage in his last 7 UFC fights. For Conor, in his 6 UFC fights, he has 5 knockouts and 1 decision. So you see a little juxtaposed, and that could be the champion fighting safe mentality playing in the GSP style of fighting, if you will. And I love GSP, don't get me wrong. So McGregor, he moves exceptionally well, and he fights very long. He uses that karate-style stance that can throw a lot of guys off. He covers distance exceptionally well, lots of kicking techniques, spinning techniques, spinning back kicks. We saw that against Chad Mendes, and that's probably the most effective time he's thrown them, where he was landing to the it's like a mouthful, Mendes' midsection, and it really seemed to be taking away a bit of his cardio. But the big weapon for the interim champion is his left hand, and he throws it exceptionally well, exceptionally crisp and clean. Very quick. He snakes it out there. A lot of casual movement followed by that lightning quick strike. And Robin Black, if you haven't heard it, he's done an excellent breakdown. I'll mention points of it here. Done an excellent breakdown on how this fight plays out in the striking realm. YouTube it. Definitely worth checking out. What we see with Conor is he likes to paw out that right hand and just keep it kind of his opponent's face, and then boom, fire that left hand. It could be very effective because they're not anticipating it, and that right hand is a constant distraction. A straight left, absolutely, drop Dustin Poirier. He also throws a very nice uppercut, but again, that left is that big hand. Look for him to throw some big combinations. He had a lot of success against Mendes, especially when he got him immobilized against the cage, and every time he got Mendes on the cage, that's when he unloaded his best weapons, and it cuts off his opponent's movement. He'll need to do that against Aldo here to close him in to increase the intensity of his offense. Defensively, though, there are some issues. He gets hit with right hands a lot, and Robin Black pointed this out, and you watch the footage, you see it. Mendes was landing, a couple of times with a big overhand right. Seaver landed a left hand a couple of times with regularity, and Dustin Poirier had some success landing leg kicks. So, McGregor seems to, defensively, he seems willing to take shots and to see how that turns out. I don't know how often you want to get hit by this guy, Jose Aldo, a vicious Muay Thai striker. We know about his big weapon, those brutal leg kicks. And, we talk about the Urijah Faber fight at nauseum, how he was able to basically destroy Faber's legs and take him out of that fight with those kicks. It only takes 1 or 2, and all of a sudden you're immobilized, or at least your movement is compromised, and we'll see if that affects Conor McGregor. Now, one thing to keep in mind, McGregor's a southpaw, though. The only other time we've seen Aldo fight a southpaw was Kenny Florian, which makes that leg kick target the inside leg because Aldo throws from the orthodox stance. And we'll see if that, we'll talk about that in a moment, but that it can be very dangerous. A very good technique for Aldo to throw, but can also open him up to be countered. Aldo has a nice uppercut. He really snaps it through there. Big right hand as well. And as we've talked about, McGregor getting tagged with some big shots, especially from the right side. We'll see if Aldo can capitalize on that. One thing with Aldo, though, as the fights progress, he tends to slip into a counter mode, snap out that left jab. He's trying to conserve that cardio. We know about his cardio, and if he's made to work, will he wear down? And that's something a lot of people don't like about him, but it's been effective in helping him retain his title. When Aldo fought Mendes in the second matchup, he took a ton of damage, too much damage, the most damage he's taken in a long time. He was complaining about headbutts and eye pokes, and it almost seemed a little bit like he was not doing well with being beaten up. And in the type of fight where he's usually cruising, in this matchup was more of a dogfight. He simply did not seem to respond well at times, despite the fact he came away with the victory. Mendes was landing some nice counter left hooks in that fight from the left side, which is something, again, McGregor does very well. One thing, the X factor here is Aldo has shown himself capable of wrestling. He comes from that Novo and Yao camp, which has very good offensive and defensive wrestling. Against Mark Hominick, he landed 5 takedowns and took him down routinely. Against the Korean Zombie, he landed 5 takedowns, had a lot of success. He landed 2 against Ricardo Lamas, who's also a very good wrestler. And we'll see if that's something he looks to employ here. There's been talk that he was going to employ that style in their first meeting. Conor was taken out by Dan Seaver very briefly, up quickly. The big power double of Chad Mendes put him down. Mendes cleared his guard exceptionally quickly and really went to work. He was getting beat up by Mendes in that position. And, it took advantage. He took advantage of the fact that Mendes was slowing down in that fight, had a minimal camp, and that allowed him to get back up in a lot of those situations. The question is, had Mendes been, fully prepared, how long could he have kept him down? He talked about Nick Lentz being able to eat Conor McGregor alive because Lentz is known for takedowns and being able to grind out rounds from that position. All right, so looking at this, how are we going to go? And again, I went back and forth on this prediction. That straight left hand of Conor McGregor as a counter to the inside leg kick of Jose Aldo could be massive. It could take away one of Aldo's bigger weapons. Even though Aldo at times hasn't used his leg kicks as much, it's something, if he goes for it, McGregor's going to look to time it. Aldo's also a little bit more, too stationary for my liking. Stands right in front of his opponents, and McGregor is going to like that. He uses a lot of movement to set up his attacks, very fluid with the way he throws strikes. The other thing is, I think McGregor's in Aldo's head. That's something that's going to make him fight, emotionally and make some mistakes. The lack of activity, some ring rust for Jose Aldo, the complacency with being a champion for so long. Additionally, he took a lot of damage in that last fight. Those are all negative things, and it seems like he's lost maybe a little bit of that aura after Mendes was able to do some damage and hurt him. McGregor is the bigger man. He hits very hard. If his chin holds up under the impact of Aldo's strikes, I think his pressure and his ability to do damage when he does touch him is going to break Aldo down. Aldo could find success early with his wrestling, but grappling with a bigger man like McGregor could prove to wear him down a little bit, especially if he can't get him down in the initial shot. I think Conor McGregor keeps coming forward. Aldo starts to fade a little bit earlier than normal. McGregor pours it on, and the impact of his strikes does the job. And I initially was on Jose Aldo with his wrestling to win by decision, but I watched the footage, and my prediction is Conor McGregor to defeat Jose Aldo by knockout and to become the fully, not interim, but official UFC featherweight champion. So those are going to be my 5 main card predictions for UFC 194. It's going to be a heck of a card. Please post things if you disagree respectfully and intelligently. Don't tell me an idiot because I picked somebody you didn't want me to pick, or said something you didn't agree with. Respectful, dialogue is the name of the game. I'm very much looking forward to this. All my preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm going to do my best to get up as much stuff as I possibly can as far as breaking fights down and getting the bet packs posted. Some of the bet packs are already posted, so make sure you check them out ASAP, but everything will be up in time for you to bet. Thank you as always for listening. I'm going to surpass 2,000 fights predicted, which I think is a lot of fun. I've been around doing this for quite a while, and a lot of people have dropped by the wayside since I've started doing this. Either way, I appreciate, as always, you guys tuning in. Follow me on Facebook, or like me on Facebook, whatever it is. Follow me on Twitter. It's getting late here, and I'm going to sign off. So thanks as always for tuning in, and UFC on Fox 17 is our next card. I'll see you then, guys.